Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. The book, Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, came out in 2020, followed by Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth, followed by Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children in 2023 as a bestseller, followed by Raised by These Wolves Volume 2, Child Trafficking Through the Foster Care and Court Systems, came out on July 17th, 2024 as a bestseller. And please feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. I have a brand new guest. I have Michele Dalton on. Her children have been wrongfully removed from her by CPS. She and her children have been suffering for over 2 years. Her children were left in the hands of a man who stabbed her 29 times, left her for dead, and then tried to kill her an additional 8 to 10 times. He essayed, physically, mentally, and emotionally abused and neglected her small children. She has been repeatedly punished for trying to protect them from their abuser. CPS continues to say this mother coached her children and have supported this man's abuse. Due to an investigation into the allegations by an outside source, justice may finally prevail. After over 2 years of being left at the hands of their abuser, the children were finally removed. They are currently in foster care for the past month, awaiting kinship approval, however, not given back to the mother. She has yet to be vindicated, and her children continue to be abused by this corrupt system, being kept away from the one person who truly loves them more than anyone could ever love them. This mother has incurred court fees, lost her home, incurred unnecessary living expenses, fines, loss of jobs, etc., in the excess well over $100,000. CPS has damaged her reputation with their false allegations and accusations. Her children now have physical damage, which will probably require surgery. They will also need years of mental health therapy. And she will continue to push on with the strength of God, but the financial struggle is an uphill battle. And she's trying to rebuild a life for her children to come back to. She needs to provide a home and safety so her babies can heal. And there is a GoFundMe, and we're going to talk more about that. So I totally welcome you, Michele. How are you? Where are you at with all of this now?
Thank you, Marianne. Um, I'm kind of a little numb right now because I've had to relive all of the abuse during the investigations.
Hmm.
Um, I've had to dig through thousands of emails, thousands literally, from court, from attorneys and from um, court dates and stuff, going back 2 years. Pictures, videos, everything. And that's been really excruciatingly painful. Um, I have like literally lived on a prayer daily trying to do that. So I have gotten stronger. I know that I have more faith and hope in this situation. Um, but only because somebody cared enough to look into the truth.
Hmm. Hmm.
And too many people don't have that around the country. I
Mm-mm.
mean, I hear stories every day. I just talked to 3 women last night online, and they haven't seen their children, and they were wrongfully removed. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I get very um, upset because I've cared for children my whole life.
Right.
I
Right.
have 7 grown children and going on grandbaby number 15. So
Aw.
I taught and I was a baby nurse, and I have spent my life protecting children. I
Mhm.
have about 160 nieces and nephews.
Mm.
Um, so it just really bothers me that they've ruined my reputation. I
Mm.
can't work with children and help people like I used to, but I think this is a new avenue that the Lord's heading me into to help other families. And I said mothers, but there are fathers too that I've spoken to who have not seen their children. It happens more to the women, and I believe it's because most of the women are vulnerable and have been abused, and they prey on women who
Mm,
are victims. So they knock them down, they take away their jobs, they make it so that they can't take care of their children, which
mhm.
is disgusting because they could before DCFS made up their lies. You
Right.
know, they were doing fine. So it's just all for financial gain, you know.
Mhm, mhm,
So this whole thing, I think part of me, you know, I yes, I hurt for myself and for my children, but I also hurt for all the stories I've heard.
mhm.
I hurt for everybody,
Oh,
um,
definitely.
because
And
children get hurt, and that's probably why you wrote your books.
true, true, but I mean, they've really railroaded you, and they're even trying to force you to pay child support because
Yeah.
that is the money incentive trail.
Yes. And this man is also not their father, not their I used a sperm
Oh,
donor, I did in vitro fertilization. Um, somehow CPS had the power to go into ORS and put down that we were married during my twins, during my pregnancy with the twins. I have no idea where they. I've never been married to this man. In fact, we only dated initially and hadn't even been together for years. So, um, yeah, I don't know how that happens.
that's
They
like
have
illegal.
power. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to look into now, how that could have happened. Because I've said over and over that that they do not have a father. They
Right.
do have a biological father, but um, we only send pictures. He's not in the picture.
Mhm.
So
Now, this person that stabbed you 29 times, any jail time for that fellow?
no, he spent 23 years in prison prior to getting out and stabbing me. And the only reason he got out of prison, he had three strikes against him. He had multiple attempted murders in prison, among other crimes. And he spent 2 years in solitary confinement. That's pretty hardcore criminal.
Mhm.
And because the governor of California did some kind of a mercy thing and let all these prisoners out, he was able to get out and then snap and stab me.
How
So
how long had you known him?
for 6 months, I think it
Mm.
was 5, 6 months. So the knife was a quarter inch away from my jugular vein. Some people have seen the pictures. I do have a slice mark that I have to cover up with makeup. That's
Mhm.
here. And my mouth, if you look close, was cut into four pieces. So it
Oh,
was like
no.
two slices there, one there. My mouth was hanging open. Um, I couldn't eat or drink in front of people for years. My
Oh,
mouth still goes numb sometimes. And so I have to do Botox on this side just to keep my mouth straight, which I notice it's wearing off the last couple
no, I
days.
think you look beautiful.
Oh,
You
thank you. Thank you. I just was like, oh no. But yeah, it kind of tightens up and then it goes numb.
yeah,
So sometimes I'll stutter. Sometimes, you know, I have to use a straw because
yeah.
whatever I'm
Oh,
drinking will go all over in front of me.
all
But
that
there's
nerve
been
damage.
yeah, and I do have slice like the doctor in the emergency room. He said that he didn't stab me; he filleted me. I have
Oh,
my wounds were open to the bone like this, flapped open. My skin was open about that big, in two separate places, and I couldn't move my arm for probably about 6 months, and then I could move it, but then it took a lot of physical therapy for me to get it moving again.
and
And
he did
and then
not serve any jail time for this
nope.
because of the
And I
3 strikes, you're out type of thing?
well, no, no. So he was removed from prison or released. And then with this case, I had told the detective, I said, I don't want to testify. I'm afraid. We didn't know where he was. He had fled. across the United States. I found out later. But I didn't want to testify because I was afraid. I already had gotten out of the hospital and had to go to a safe house shelter.
Mhm.
People were afraid that he was going to come back after me. So
Mhm.
I was kind of shunned because they were afraid for their lives. And that's happening again now because there might have been an attempted murder on me just about a week and a half ago.
Mhm.
We were in my friend's house next door, and I had driven my car over, and my car mirrors were pushed in. And then I ran after I'd gone back out from her house to the car and noticed that. I got scared and ran back in and closed the door. And she said, "Oh, something weird just happened. Somebody's in the house." And so a phone that did not belong to her, her husband was miles away hunting, had rang in the house. And then the police came and said that the mirrors were manually pushed in. They could tell they were manually pushed in. The entrance from the garage to her office had a, a gate, a high gate that had to have been opened in order to go in through the garage. And that gate is always closed and locked
Mhm.
because of her dog. So yeah, it was obvious that someone came into the house. It seems pretty intentional that it was for me. So now I have to deal with my friend's children being afraid that if I'm over there, that he might come after me and their children will be present.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm being it's really hard. I feel like I don't know if I'll ever have freedom, you know.
Mhm.
And then for CPS to do this, like me and my kids were already leaving the area, and then for them to bring us back, so they can make money off the case. That's pretty sad.
Mhm. So,
I
like, where
thought
were your kids when you were being attacked?
so. I didn't have the kids when I was stabbed
Oh.
the first time. Um, my He did choke me unconscious one time with my oldest son on the bed asleep. Um, and then, and these are just two of the things that I remember offhand. He um, beat me up and tried to drown me in the bathtub, pregnant with my twins.
Mm.
I was 7.5 months pregnant with the twins, and my son was still 3, almost 4. And he came in between us, screaming at him.
Oh.
And then, yeah, and then after he finally got him, he was behind him screaming, and then he came in between us, and that stopped him, the man. I don't know if I should say his name or what.
Uh-uh.
Um, okay, so that stopped him from killing me
Uh-huh.
potentially. And my son had had backed up, and he then turned and targeted my son for siding with me and protecting me and not being on his side, kind of, in his
Yeah.
mind. That's what he was
Sick.
thinking.
Mhm.
And the next morning I do have a recording of him admitting that he needed to leave because he was going to kill me. In different ways, he said that kids need to be screamed at, or else they'll end up, excuse my language, stupid or fags.
Mm.
And I have lots of recordings
Mhm.
of everything. The only problem is that I have not gotten to present anything at
Mhm.
all, no evidence at all, because I have not been given a fair trial. So it's been 5 months. May 3rd is when they removed them, and I have not gotten to defend myself in any way to the petition lies, even though they have declared that I did not coach my children and that the SA abuse did happen, and that I did not make it up. And
Mhm.
so um, there's everything that they lie about in the petition. Excessive exams. I never did excessive exams. They lied, and I have proof of that.
Mhm.
I brought my child into the pediatrician. I brought all three of them in for a well check because he had them, and they were only eating cereal every day. So I was afraid that if they're eating sugar cereal every day and that's it, I thought maybe they would have diabetes. So I went and got their
Mhm.
CBC. So then I asked the doctor to look at him, which his anus was an inch in diameter, open, relaxed.
Mm.
And then CPS tried to say that the doctor said that it wasn't from sexual abuse, but that is not what the doctor said. And the investigator has now looked at that and said that's not what the doctor said at all. So another thing I want to add is that
Mhm.
there was an existing protective order against him
Mhm.
since March, um, that said that he should have no visitation at all. So CPS overrode that protective order, which is, it says on the protective order that nobody else besides that judge can overrule it. So, or override it, whatever you call it. And
Mhm.
so basically, they did, and they didn't care. They didn't contact that judge or anything. They just did what they wanted to, like they always do.
Mhm. Mhm.
They think that they're gods. They play God.
Oh,
They do.
yes, I've seen it. Oh, yes. And they perjure themselves on the stand. They're very good at that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My mouth was just dropped when I went for the shelter hearing. I was like, "What?" And the funny thing is that I'm the one that. So my therapist had called in the initial case back in March, where he had slapped my twin daughter, the little
Mhm.
one, across the face so hard that she flew. And so that opened a case. When this caseworker went to the house, he refused to let them interview the kids. And so after the CPS worker left, um, this man went downstairs and screamed at my son for telling me, or somebody. He didn't, he said for telling. So I don't know if it was for telling me or who he thought he
Mm.
had told, but he said it in front of the twins. So, but he directed it towards my son. So when he screamed at him, he threatened that if he told anybody anything else he said or done, then he would kill me and he would hurt my son really bad.
Mm.
And then I didn't know till after I that's why I did the protective order,
Mhm.
was because I was afraid that he was going to kill me and hurt my son.
Mhm.
So I did that protective order. And then about a week and a half later, the CPS, brand new CPS worker, she's probably around 20. I mean, they all are.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
haven't lived,
Yeah.
probably never been in a relationship, don't
Doesn't
have
have
kids.
kids.
No, no, exactly. They manipulate these people. Um, so the supervisor had come in, and I've heard a lot of corrupt stuff about this supervisor too. I have a lot of people that have come forward to me about this supervisor. So I knew there was corruption already, but they were supposed to come talk to me
Mhm.
about the accusations against him. I wasn't supposed to be the perpetrator. He was the perpetrator.
Mhm.
So when they came into the house, they asked me questions, and they looked at my house, which is perfectly clean and has everything for a child, and then checked to see if I had running water. And I thought that was really weird. I thought,
Yeah.
why are they checking mine when he's the one that they're supposed to be checking? So then after they left, I'd gone downstairs, uh, undressed my babies for the bath. There were two other witnesses I'm not going to mention that were down there with me. So I got the babies ready for bath, and my little girl touched her brother's pee-pee, we call it.
Mm.
And then I said, "Oh, we don't touch people's pee-pee."
Mm.
And then she says, "Well, he touches mine at dad's," and um,
Mm.
I said, "Okay, well, we don't touch each other's pee-pee. Nobody touches yours either in the bathing suit area at all." And
Mhm.
so then my older son, he was 7,
Mhm.
says to me, "Well, dad touches my pee-pee." And I kind of, in my mind, I've worked with kids my whole life. I kind of thought, okay, well, kids say that because their kids give or their parents give them a bath or something. And I know that he hasn't bathed them, because my son says that he does all the bathing he bathes the twins and himself, and he feeds himself.
Oh.
So the only thing this man does is lay in bed all day and let the kids And in fact, CPS calls them feral. Even though they're the sweetest, most well-behaved kids, they're feral because they don't have anyone caring for them, or they didn't when CPS left them there.
Ah,
So, yeah. And so then I'm thinking, okay, I said, was he giving you a bath? And he said, no, there was no water in the bath. And I couldn't understand. And he said to me that, and this was like a week to a week and a half after I had done the protective order with him threatening to, whoop, sorry, my son
okay.
really bad. So anyway, um, he had told him after that, right after that, and I didn't find out till a week later, that he had told him to go upstairs, take off his clothes, and stand in the bathtub. This was like a punishment, I believe, is what, because
Mm,
it happened since, we found out later. So he goes into the bathtub, and then he tells me that that he touched his pee. Now my son is a very numbers person, so
mhm,
he uses numbers a lot, time frames, um, how many times of everything. And I think it was like he said he rubbed his pee for 4 to 5 minutes, then did something in the back for 4 to 5 minutes. And I said, what did he do in the back or something like that? And he said, I don't know. I couldn't see behind me. And and then he ended up saying it was in the hole that the poop comes out of.
mhm,
So I was thinking, what? I thought, I still was kind of like, I'm so, I guess I'm more of a kids say things type person,
mhm,
so let me just listen more. And
mhm,
so he said, I said, did it hurt? Did he put his hand there? I didn't know if he was putting his hand on his butt or what, but I just did this like next to my hip, not to lead anything on. And so he said, it, it felt like ants. And I said, ants? That kind of shocked me.
mhm,
And I said, ants, what do ants feel like? And he said, stinging. And that's when my whole body got numb.
mm,
I literally disassociated. I
mm,
was sick to my stomach. I realized that he had done something inside that hole. And
mhm,
so
mm,
I just couldn't, like, I kind of shut off there thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do? And I went upstairs with my friend. Now, the other person that was downstairs still, who lived
mm,
with us, um, videotaped him and said something like, "So what'd you say your dad did? He touched your pee-pee?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Where did?" She said, "Where did he touch you?" And he says, "Right here and right here."
mm,
And I sent that video. She sent it to me while I was upstairs because I was just sitting there like, I don't know what to do. And I'm talking to my friend and saying, she's telling me take an emergency room to get an exam so they can catch evidence, like a rape kit type thing. And I'm sitting there like I had already had contact with the police because of visit transfers and stuff.
mhm,
So I had one officer's number. So I called him, and then I mentioned that I was going to take him to the emergency room. And as I was talking and deciding what to do, um, the person downstairs sent me this video. And so I sent it right over to the caseworker because I was just like, I can't believe this. My babies, if you need any more proof,
mhm,
So I don't know if they turned that video into a coaching thing or not.
mm,
Um,
mm,
eh, I'm not sure, but that wasn't, like there's three of us that heard him come out and say it without being coached, without being asked anything. He just came out with it. So it was kind of shocking to me at first. I was kind of like, oh yeah, bath.
mhm,
But then when he told me the details, I was sickened.
mhm,
And anyway, so basically, then they they did nothing. I had the protective order. They kept fighting the protective order against him, which was very strange
uh-huh,
because why would it matter? Like, to keep kids safe for an amount of time while you're going to court or you're trying to decide things. And at that time, there was no petition against me. So I had my children for 2 months, and had moved an hour away and was working and doing great. I got a new car. I mean, I was actually able to get a
Mhm.
loan to get a new car, got the insurance, put my kids in daycare. I had been for 2 years going to the domestic violence shelter.
Mhm.
And so I had taken literally like 9 parenting classes,
Mm, mhm.
different types of trauma classes, therapy, individual dialectic behavior therapy, everything I could, just because I just wanted to make sure that this man didn't affect me anymore, you
Mhm.
know? So I was trying to strengthen myself. And so the kids went to kids club there, and um, the caregivers there noticed that my kids were so happy. They were like so changed since I had gotten them away,
Mhm.
and they were happy in daycare. My son was homeschooled, so he was in the full day daycare,
Mhm.
which I didn't leave them all day, but they had that option. And
Mhm.
he didn't even want to leave. He loved it. He had friends now, you know. He wasn't trapped in a house locked up
Mhm.
like he had been for 2 years. So yeah, there's a lot of. Um, I did just find a video finally. Excuse me. So my friend that I'm sorry, let me I've had
That's
to
okay. I'm so sorry this has happened. They've totally
so
destroyed your lives.
yeah, and I thought, you know, okay, I got my kids feeling safe. Oh yeah, another thing. So my son only went to school 1 day a week at a preparatory school because he was homeschooled. So they only went 1 day a week. And I guess when he was being picked up by this man, he would hide under the desk and didn't want to go with him. And then after I did the protective order, the school counselor, I asked for him to meet with him because I could now say stuff. You know, I could take care of my kids and I could get them healed finally. And he went to his classroom and got him out. And he said, "How are you doing today?" And his name. And he said, "Great. I got away from my dad," you
Oh,
know, and
wow.
and then revealed to him a lot of abuse. CPS, he called in a report. CPS never investigated. There have been, I found
Oh,
out that there are a lot of reports against this man that people have called in, and, you know, besides myself, that they have ignored. But the thing I wanted to mention, the reason I mentioned that is because my son finally felt safe, and he was overjoyed, and people had seen that it was not the same, his name,
right.
uh, when he wasn't with me. But all of a sudden, he felt safe because he knew he was out of there. And we had the protective order. He thought he was never going to have to go back. Then we moved the hour away, and we kept reminding him, me and my friend. So she was very instrumental in helping me a lot. But we kept reminding him that it was very safe. Now I mentioned this tape I just found, this video. So when we were sitting in the car, I was in her car, and the kids were in the back seat. He was behind me, and I know that we had court for the protective order the next day. So I don't know if I answered the phone and verified the time or something. I don't know what it was that made my son react, but all of a sudden he started freaking out and crying and screaming that he never wanted to go back to him. And I might have still went off. I can't remember. It was just like I hear him screaming and crying. They didn't want to go back, and
Mhm.
he's behind me. But then my friend had looked back and saw that she had the vacuum cleaner hose over the seat, or vacuum cleaner over the seat a little, and he took the hose and he had wrapped it around his neck and was trying to choke himself. And she jumped out of the driver's seat, ran over to the passenger seat, and was calming him down. So by the time I videotaped, I knew he wasn't looking. I hid the video camera because I was like, I'm tired of this. You know, my
Mhm.
kid's being abused and nobody's listening to him.
Mhm.
So I was trying to catch it on recording. But,
Mhm.
and then he's sad, and he was crying. And she said, "Why are you scared?" why are you sad? And she said, I'm afraid of him. He said, I'm afraid of him. Sorry.
That's
He
okay.
said, I'm afraid of him. And she said, what? Because she couldn't hear what he said. And he said, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. And just continually crying. And I could not find that video because I thought I'd saved it to a SIM card, but I ended up finding it
Oh,
on
good.
a text message that I had sent to the caseworker that it didn't go through because it was too large to send.
Hmm.
So I just found that a couple days ago. So hopefully that is instrumental in proving the fear that
Hmm.
he had, from this person. Um, it was heart wrenching. And that's probably why I haven't slept in the last couple of days because I could not find the window that it was in.
Yeah.
It kept playing over and over.
Right.
And
Right.
like haunted by it. It, it's
You know,
it's sick that people can do this and get away with it.
right. Right. So did CPS lie to the judge so he would get the kids away?
Yes.
Oh, just
Yes.
like mine did. Okay.
Oh, majorly. In fact, there's been proof. So the attorney general said that he believes that, or they believe that that I hired somebody back when the stabbing happened to lie and say that this man was the one that stabbed me. Now,
Mm.
I'm going to tell you this. There's a 911 call that has attempted murder. It has him as a suspect. It has a description of him. It says that there are witnesses that said all this and mentions his name in the 911 call. So I could not have doctored that up, but okay, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It's a piece
Mhm.
of paper. So maybe someone could doctor that up. But I also presented the police report which says attempted murder with his name, description. It says all the witnesses, the knife found with his blood, with his fingerprints. His blood was on the scene. It was in his studio apartment.
Mhm.
My kids went there to retrieve my stuff later, and they saw, and other friends also had seen the blood splatter all over the whole studio apartment, the
Mm.
bathroom, everything. And so I think it's really like insane that they could say that because there were about 5 to 7 officers' reports in that report.
Mhm.
The whole apartment complex was taped off with caution tape. Everybody was removed from their apartments, and this was like at 12 o'clock at night, 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. So everyone was evacuated. They said there was so much blood. And so it just kind of is weird that he would say there's no proof that this is the man that did this
Mhm.
to me. I even have the recording of the stabbing, which I sent to them.
Mhm. Mhm.
I sent the recording of the stabbing
Mhm.
leading up to the stabbing. So if they can't tell it's his voice and they're trying to make that up that it's not his voice, then I know there's other evidence too, because I have friends that he is friends, a pastor that he actually has admitted to doing it. In fact, in CPS's notes, um, I have a transcript of the other caseworker who had said that, and Families First worker, they both said in this transcript that he's been asked. They were worried that he would do this again, and he did not deny that he didn't do it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
they both said that he's never denied it. He just hasn't admitted to it. Most people that are guilty will deny, or I mean, innocent. Most people that are innocent will deny it.
Mhm.
They're not going to sit there and say, oh, "Okay, I didn't do
Right.
it." So yeah, there's so much more. Um, just the fact that this man could do this and they are rewarding him
Mhm.
for this. And the whole reason this started was because he wanted to get me kicked out of my own house because there was equity in it. And I had put in his name because he ruined my credit.
Yeah.
So And it was always the understanding though that it was my house. In fact, I have proof of that. I have the
Mhm.
bank records. I have the recording transcripts of him saying this stuff, and a peer parenting counselor that he said that it's her house. She's the one that wanted it, so I don't have to pay her anything for rent.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's he doesn't know any of this stuff, and I think that CPS and his attorney have um, what is the word, done a misservice on him.
Uh-huh.
They actually have made him have that false feeling that he is what do you call, I'm sorry, I'm so tired.
It's okay.
In what is the word, um can't be conquered, like, can't be taken down. He's indestructible, kind of,
Yeah, right.
and
Egotistical.
so yeah, he is. So he thinks that he is, I think he convinces himself, well, I know he convinces himself of his own lies. In fact, I think he doesn't even know that he's done stuff. I mean, I know he doesn't, because he used to squeeze my babies, and because he would think, and pardon the expression, he would imagine that they're Jews and niggers, is what he called them. I'm a white nigger, but he would call them Jews and niggers. Whenever I told him something that I heard on Facebook about, anything political or whatever, I'd say, "Oh, I just read this," just trying to be friendly. And he would snap in his mind, and he'd start squeezing my children and not know that, like,
Mhm.
not have that ability to know, like schizophrenia,
Mhm.
to know that he was doing it. Oh, and we did do it. Yeah, we did do a psychological evaluation
Mhm.
last year where he was diagnosed with antisocial disorder. Everybody that has met him says he's a sociopath. I know he has schizophrenia. He does talk to himself in front of the bathroom mirror, which my
Oh.
son has said he sees, but it's not talking to himself, it's third person. So
Mhm.
my son had said that he threatens to kill me in the mirror, and he holds his finger like a gun, which I know that when I had videotaped him and I had seen him do this before, he would sit there and, like, almost like he's referring to this person that he's angry with
Mhm.
next to him almost, and telling this person that they needed to be killed, they needed to be hurt, and I'm going to beat the whatever out of him, whatever he was saying. Um, he was referring to this person over here. So my son's witnessed that.
Mm.
He did also just before this all started, where they're thinking I'm the perpetrator. He lifted me about 5 to 6, maybe even further, about 5 to 6 feet. He's, by the way, 6'6" and about 250 pounds.
Mm.
He lifted me off the ground in front of my child and, like, threw me kind of. And
Mhm.
I landed. I know I hurt my wrist, my knee, and my hip. And I had a huge bruise like this big on my hip. And I have the pictures of it. Oh, by the way, there are about 15 police reports, not by just myself, but by others against him. Totally ignored. I spent 3.5 hours in interrogation on all the abuse. I did police reports, witness reports on those, each event with proof, like where he knocked my tooth out. I have the dental record. Um, and where in the recording I have, he admits that my bone was moving, that he broke my eye socket bone,
Oh.
broke my jaw, but there was a concussion that I had for about 3 months, and I went to the doctor, like, after the fact, the emergency room. Sorry.
Mhm.
Um, I actually filmed uh, at what is it called? Pawn Stars. I was on Pawn Stars,
Mhm.
and I had a black eye in that, and I used makeup to cover it.
Mm.
So yeah, all my kids saw my tooth missing and my black eyes, everything, and I said I fell, and I
Mm.
couldn't have fallen in my bedroom because it's like I have a giant king size bed that's like 3 feet high,
Mhm.
and there was nowhere that I could have fallen and had that happen.
Right,
Had my teeth
right.
knocked and yeah, the way it was broken and knocked out. So they knew right
Mhm.
away. And I admitted to them after, but I was saying, "Oh, I fell," you know.
Right. And these were
Because
your older kids or
yeah, my
the
older children. My
okay.
older children. So my youngest of my 7 did live with me in Utah. I'm from California originally, and I have the 7 children and grandchildren in California. But the youngest one did live with me and go to high school in Utah,
Mhm.
and witnessed a lot of stuff. And him, just trying
Mhm.
to start fights with her. Even he has yelled at my other friends' kids and done like a corporal punishment to them. My one friend that I was very close to, and she had a son my son's age,
Mhm.
and she wouldn't come back to the house. And so we lost our friendship because of him. But this has happened with a lot of people anyway.
Mhm.
I've been forced to. He wanted me to change my name. He wanted me to use somebody else's identity when we first came to Utah. He got
Mhm.
used fictitious tags, um, car tags for registration so
Mhm.
that the police wouldn't catch him. And um, so there's been so much corruption. He hacked into neighbors' computers. So he's also a genius. In fact, the investigator, sorry, the investigator said, "Have you seen his psychological evaluation?" I said, "Yeah, what do you mean?" And he said, "Did you see how smart he is?" And I said, "Yeah, that's why I was crying during mine because I thought it was going to affect me, that he was such a genius." So during the vocabulary part, even though I scored really high and I score really high during one of the portions during the vocabulary,
Mhm.
he taught himself like 5 different languages in prison. Yeah. So he knows Sanskrit, he knows German, he knows Hebrew, he knows it's quite impressive.
Wow.
It's really
Wow.
impressive. It's sad, but that shouldn't be my fault though. That
No,
he
no.
is. I, but because I was doing that vocabulary, I started to cry
Mhm.
and thought, you know what? Because he's so smart, they're going to think he's the good guy and I'm the bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually kind of shut down during that portion, and it
Mhm.
kind of affected my not too bad, but it kind of affected my psychological evaluation, I think,
Ah,
because I was consistently high in all these other areas, and then this one, I know I cried. But then they also CPS is in control of the psychological evaluators too. It was not a
yeah.
person. They hire their own. They have someone that does it for them. In fact, the caseworker did not bring in the proof of any of the stabbing at all. So it was more like I just was accusing him of this. So the psychological evaluator just assumed, okay, well, she says this, but, we don't have proof. Well, it's because nobody has given me a chance to present the proof. I
Right.
have proof of everything that CPS has lied about. They have no idea. They think that I'm just like all these other, you know, parents who don't know what's going on, and they don't record things, they don't, write down things. I have recordings of
Mm.
everything, every phone call, every visit. I have text messages, emails, proof. I made sure that I had proof of everything that I sent them, and that way I could, you know bring it up later if I
Mhm.
needed, because they were so corrupt. I could see the corruption early on, very early on. So,
I think a lot of parents can, but they're helpless to do anything about it because they keep coming at you.
yeah.
Ugh.
Well, they make it so that like I've heard so many moms, especially, not any dads yet, but I've heard so many moms who are lucky to be alive. Honestly,
Mhm.
they say that they were suicidal,
Mhm.
and I don't know what mom wouldn't be. And then then CPS also says that women are combative and stuff like that. I've seen that they use that in their petitions a lot. And I'm like, okay, what do you think a bear is going to do if you go and take their baby cub away from them? They're going to smack you and you'll be dead in 2 seconds, you
Uh-huh.
know? So they act like, like people don't have feelings, people don't have lives, that it doesn't affect them. That's their babies. That's women
Mm.
wait their whole lives to have children
I know.
and to love them and to raise them the way that they want to. And most mothers want to give them what they didn't have. And
Mm.
I hear these stories over and over, and it's just so sad that they take that from, they rob this from all these mothers, and then they hurt the children.
Mm-hmm.
So the children have abandonment issues. They feel like they were the blame for all this stuff. They have so many feelings. Um, it's just so wrong. It's really
Mm-hmm.
wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I had created a Facebook page back last year because and I know a lot of people get a lot of attention by saying CPS corruption, but I had started mine with making a change instead of attacking them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my goal is to try to make a change because um, they are violating our rights. I mean, I've
Mm-hmm.
been told already by the investigator that they violated my Eighth Amendment right among a lot of others.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so they're violating our rights. They're getting away with it. The Chevron doctrine didn't help
No.
anyone at all. You
Mm.
know,
Right.
there's just so much that they've gotten away with for so many years. They think that they can continue.
See, I think they
And so,
should be abolished.
yes, I agree, because I was thinking about that last night. I thought, okay, how can you make a change? Because they've already gotten their mind money. This is how the money comes in. Like, there are a lot of people that have nonprofits and stuff like that that are, you know,
Mm-hmm.
not legit, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they get money. You
Mm-hmm.
get grants, you get money. Um, CPS getting, oh, this is another thing. So while he had my children, they put that they were in foster care, which they got grants from, or money from, the federal government for foster care, but they didn't they weren't paying him. So he was not a licensed foster care parent. I was told that that's the only way that they can get money when the kids are living with a parent or relative, is by saying that they're in foster care. So they're lying. They're flat out lying to the
Mm-hmm.
government. And that's what Congress had that hearing on May 21st, I believe it was,
Mm-hmm.
on the wrongful removal of wrongful use of foster care funds or something, and psychotropic drugs or something like that. But yeah, they knowingly do this. They write things so that they can have a way to get the funding, because we don't have any money. Well, you're a nonprofit organization. You are not a government agency.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's like me going and starting an organization and lying and stealing people's kids and doing all this stuff and trying to get money just so I can get money from the government. You know, it's just so corrupt to the
So
core.
the CPS in Utah,
Hmm.
are they funded? They're governmentally funded, right?
So I was told that it is not, that
Mm.
CPS is not part of the government. Now I don't know for sure. Everything seems to be a big secret, and
Mm-hmm.
whenever you're asked, like, people that have worked there have come out, and whistleblowers have said that they're wrongfully getting funding and stuff, and there's incentives and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
then people that are still there say, "Oh no, we don't get a commission. There's no, you know, funding. We get nothing. Oh no, we don't have any money." So I've heard both. I'd like to really find out, because that's a way to fix things, I think,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
non incentivizing, and um, I've heard so much more. Like I mean, I had told you prior that legislation actually started an investigation on my case. Um, but with the head of DCFS and the constituents, they work for CPS. So why is CPS going to tell on themselves? You know what I mean? I
Right.
know how that investigation is going to come out, but I was lucky enough to have somebody else that was not part of CPS that came in and investigated and found all kinds of corruption and
Yeah, they need
just
to.
violations against me. And we don't, all these other thousands and thousands of people across the country don't have this investigator. I wish he could go in every case.
Right.
I,
Right.
I wish he had the ability to do that. I was blessed by this person because even the other investigator had gone in, and I guess I shouldn't say, but had gone in and watched the interview and said, "Oh yeah, she coached him," and just kind of brushed it off and wasn't going to do any investigating. This investigator went into everything, was just like blown away by
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff and what they've done to me. So,
Oh man.
yeah.
Well, I looked up
And
if
the ombudsman is also investigating too, but
Mhm.
it's ombudsman is for Child Protective Services, I've heard too. So I
Yeah.
really don't know like how they can sit there and investigate themselves.
Right. Right.
Their investigation, I've been told, is on if they're following policies and procedures, but they're making up their own policies and procedures. And
Mm-hmm.
they've been doing this all for so long that, yeah, we did what we always do.
Right. Right. Well, I
But yeah.
looked it up. It says the
Mhm.
division is funded by a mix of state general fund, federal funds, dedicated credits, expendable receipts, state restricted funds, and transfers. That's how Utah CPS is governmentally funded.
I've heard Social Security, the children's Social
That
Security.
too. Well, yeah, that too. That's probably with the Title IV child
Yeah,
support
that's
as
what I was thinking
well.
too. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of funding going on. This has got to stop with the. This is kids for cash.
Yes. Yes. Definitely. Definitely. And it's hurting our country,
Oh,
period.
yes.
Hurting everybody. I don't think people realize that, oh, well, at least my kids weren't taken away or whatever. But and then the sad thing is that all these parents get looked at as guilty,
Hmm.
as bad parents, bad people. And it puts a depression on them, and it puts the the lack of wanting to even try because they're fighting a losing battle. And it just tears people apart,
Hmm.
and that affects our whole country, you know even the people that aren't in this situation, because they're stealing money.
Right.
They're stealing money, stealing families, ruining children's lives. So we've
Oh.
got more crime um, in the future for all these kids that have gone through foster care. I've talked to foster care kids even who
Hmm.
in the same area that I'm in, and they actually were adopted out. One mother who I love to death had her 3 children taken from her wrongfully, and her 2-year-old was ripped out of her hands by this same supervisor that I said everybody says is corrupt.
Uh-huh.
Ripped out of her hands, and he laughed. Um, he has been heard by other foster teens and stuff, other people saying things that are not even, uh, he would have been arrested if he was heard saying it by the right person.
Oh.
But he also said something to a police officer that somebody overheard, also about bragging um, about getting a huge bonus for taking 3 children away. So, and these foster kids have told me that they will question, like before they were removed, CPS will question a child about 10 different times, 10 different ways to
Hmm.
get the answer that they want from them.
Right.
That's what this girl who emancipated at 17, this was the woman with the 3 children who was taken away. I met with her and her older daughter. They were reunited. She emancipated, and I met with them. And she told me all the stuff that she went through and how Her mom did not abuse her, and she was removed, adopted out, and then abused in adoption too. That's another thing. One of her
Hmm.
children were adopted to a pedophile, a known pedophile by this man that everybody is saying is corrupt, by the supervisor. So um, he was adopted out to a known pedophile who actually just shot himself um, when the police came to get him. This is years later. The kid is either 13. I'm trying to remember which one of the boys is. I think he's about 13 or 15 now, but he was removed when he was 2. That was the
Mm.
anyway. It's been about 12 years now. So he had
Mm.
been in this home with this pedophile for at least 12 years, and there was an accusation from a neighbor, and he knew he was going to get caught, so he went and hid at his mother's in our city. And when the police came up to the door, he shot himself and killed himself.
Mm.
So, but the mother, the adoptive mother, still has this child, and she had to have known that this was happening,
Hmm.
especially when he had a record of pedophilia,
Oh,
and they adopted a child out to him. I mean, I have heard so many horror stories. It's disgusting, Marianne. It's really disgusting.
yeah, she ought to go to jail.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm not about, punishment and stuff like that.
Mm.
Really, I'm not that type of a person. But at least do something for these children. You know,
Right, right.
they've been
Well,
damaged.
why didn't they just take that boy and give him back to the mother? Like, why aren't
That's
they
how I
doing this?
feel.
Right.
Yeah, because they legally adopted them out. So legally,
Legally, but we really don't know
legal.
what that
That's what I was
really
saying, legal.
means. Yeah.
Yeah,
Legal
and
kidnapping.
oh yeah, I have friends that I keep in touch with. One woman who she didn't have her rights removed. Um, her daughter was in foster care, and the foster parents moved, just took off. She doesn't know where her daughter is, and they haven't done anything. So she's gone to the court. She can't find anything in the court records. Um, so that's one of the first people I'm going to help, because
Mhm.
how can you take a child when there's no record of any wrongdoing, and there's she did not waive her rights. She did not have her was it TPR? Is that what's called?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So it's just
So wrong.
disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, very corrupt.
You know,
So
I'm so glad you came onto the podcast.
thank you for
You'll have
having
to
me.
keep me posted on how you do. I hope you get your kids back and,
Yeah.
rightfully so. How do you want people to reach you? Do you want them to come through me or you or
Whichever way, I am on Facebook also. Um, so
make a
I'm,
change? Make a change. Making a
yeah,
change.
making a change in Utah CPS DCFS, or my personal one's fine too if you want to put
Okay.
that. So if you want to put that down there, then
Okay.
I do not mind being contacted at all.
Okay.
Um, I hope there's no threats, but because
Yeah.
I've had enough. But I
Yeah.
know
You've
people
been
get
through enough.
judgmental on things, and ask questions and say, "Oh, well, this and that," and that's the problem,
Well,
is that people need to understand that CPS is corrupt, and stop judging these parents.
right.
You know,
See, and people, what they need to understand is you'll get it when it happens to you.
yes, that's what I've heard too. Yes, exactly. Hopefully, it doesn't, but
Right. Yeah,
we want to end it.
definitely. I agree. Well, hey, don't jump off. Okay. Slam
Okay.
the Gavel is a podcast, help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, and you can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe, Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms I don't know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. And I thank you, Michele Dalton, for coming on and telling your story because it needs to be heard.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
helping everybody
Well, thank you.
for what you do.